The email landed in my inbox at 9:47 on a Tuesday morning, and I almost missed it. It was buried under 12 other messages, marked low priority, and the subject line was so plain it looked like spam. Hartwell account, internal notes. I clicked it without thinking. Then I read it. Then I read it again. My coffee went cold in my hand. This is Revenge Room. If this is the first time you are seeing our video, kindly like, share, and subscribe. Thank you. The email wasn't meant for me. That much was clear. It was a thread between my boss, Marcus, and the senior partner, Gerald Whitfield. And in it, Marcus was claiming sole credit for the Hartwell deal. The deal I had built from scratch. The deal I had spent 8 months bleeding for. He hadn't just left my name off the proposal. He had typed, in plain black letters, that I had contributed minor research support. Minor research support. I sat at my desk, staring at those 3 words, and felt something inside me go very quiet. Not angry. Not yet. Just quiet. Like the moment before a storm, when even the birds stop singing and the whole world holds its breath. My name is Hannah Beckwith, and I had worked at Whitfield and Pierce for 6 years. I started as a junior associate, fresh out of business school, 24 years old and full of hope. I believed in the company. I believed in the work. And for a long time, I believed in Marcus too. He hired me. He mentored me. He told me, over and over, that hard work would always be rewarded at this firm. He smiled when he said it, and his smile was warm, and I trusted him because I was young and I didn't know any better. 6 years later, I was 30 years old. I had built a reputation as the firm's quiet engine. The one who could untangle impossible deals. The one who stayed late, who never complained, who made sure every detail was perfect before anything left the office. And Marcus? Marcus had become the one who took the meetings. The one who shook the client's hands. The one whose name appeared on the contracts I had drafted. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself my time would come. I was wrong. The Hartwell account was supposed to be different. It was the biggest deal the firm had ever taken on, worth nearly $40 million over 5 years. When the lead came in, Marcus called me into his office and closed the door. "This one's yours, Hannah," he said. "Top to bottom. You build it, you close it, and your name goes on it." I remember how my heart felt that day. Light. Like it could float right out of my chest and drift up to the ceiling. I thanked him. I shook his hand. I went home that night and told my sister on the phone that everything was finally about to change. For 8 months, I worked harder than I had ever worked in my life. I traveled to 4 cities. I rewrote the proposal 11 times. I memorized every detail of Hartwell's business, their pain points, their goals, their fears. I knew their CEO's coffee order by the 3rd meeting. Marcus dropped in occasionally. He attended 2 of the early calls. He approved the budget. But the work, the real work, was mine. Every line of it. And then, 3 days before the final pitch, he stopped returning my emails. I didn't think much of it at first. Marcus was busy. He had other accounts, other meetings, other things pulling at his time. So when his replies slowed down, I assumed he trusted me to handle the final stretch alone. I should have paid more attention. The night before the pitch, I sent him the final deck for review. I waited up until midnight. No reply. I sent a follow-up at 7 the next morning. Still nothing. By 9, I was in a cab heading to the Hartwell office, deck in hand, assuming he would meet me there. He didn't. The Hartwell team welcomed me into their boardroom, but their faces looked confused. Their CEO, a woman named Diane Hartwell, glanced at her phone and frowned. "We were told Marcus would be presenting," she said. I felt the floor tilt. He didn't tell me that. I prepared the entire pitch. She studied me for a long moment. Then she nodded, slowly, and gestured to the seat across from her. "Then please, go ahead." I gave the best presentation of my life that day. And I had no idea, none at all, that Marcus had already made his move. The deal closed 2 weeks later. $42 million, signed and sealed. The biggest win in the firm's history. There was a celebration at a steakhouse downtown, hosted by Gerald Whitfield himself. Champagne. Speeches. Photographs. I wasn't invited. I found out about the dinner the next morning when one of my colleagues, a junior associate named Priya, mentioned it casually in the elevator. She thought I had been there. She had seen photos posted online and assumed I was just out of frame. I went to my desk, opened my laptop, and searched for the photos. There they were. Marcus, beaming. Gerald, raising a glass. The whole senior team, smiling around a table covered in food I had not eaten and wine I had not drunk. I sat there for a long time. Not crying. Just sitting. That afternoon, I went to Marcus's office and asked, as calmly as I could, why I hadn't been invited. He looked up from his computer with mild surprise. "Oh, Hannah, that was a partner-level event. You'll get there one day. Just keep grinding." He smiled. The same warm smile from 6 years ago. And I smiled back, because I didn't know what else to do. That was 3 weeks before the email. In those 3 weeks, something shifted in the office. People who used to stop by my desk stopped coming. Meetings I should have been in went on without me. When I asked about it, I was told things were being restructured. When I pushed, I was told to be patient. I started to feel invisible. Worse than invisible. I started to feel like I was being slowly erased. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself Marcus had earned my trust over 6 years and I was reading too much into normal corporate noise. I made myself work harder, smile wider, keep my head down. And then, on a Tuesday morning, an email landed in my inbox by mistake. Marcus had meant to send it only to Gerald. But he had typed my name into the wrong field, the way busy people do when they're moving too fast and trusting their fingers more than their eyes. He had cut me out of my own deal. He had told the senior partner I had done minor research support. And now I knew. I didn't reply to the email. I didn't print it, forward it, or do anything that might leave a trail. I simply read it 3 more times, made sure I understood every word, and then I closed my laptop. I walked to the bathroom, locked the stall, and sat on the closed toilet lid for 10 minutes. My hands were shaking. Not from sadness. From something else. Something colder. When I came out, I splashed water on my face, fixed my makeup, and walked back to my desk. I smiled at Priya. I waved at the receptionist. I sat down and opened a spreadsheet that had nothing to do with anything. But in my head, a different document was opening. A list. A plan. A quiet, careful plan. Because here was the thing Marcus had forgotten. I had spent 8 months working on Hartwell. 8 months of emails, drafts, notes, calls, and meetings. Every single one of them was saved. Every single one of them had timestamps. Every single one of them had my name on it, in places he could not erase. He had built a story. But I had built a record. And records, I knew, would always beat stories. That night, I went home to my small apartment, made myself a cup of tea, and sat down at my kitchen table with my personal laptop. I plugged in an external hard drive I had bought months ago for backing up family photos. Tonight, it would hold something else. I started with my email. I went back 8 months and pulled every single message related to the Hartwell account. Every draft proposal I had sent. Every revision request I had received. Every meeting confirmation. Every late-night thank you note from the Hartwell team praising my responsiveness. I saved them all. Carefully. With dates intact. Then I moved to my work files. The firm allowed us to keep local copies of project documents for offline work, and I had taken full advantage of that. I had 11 versions of the Hartwell proposal on my laptop, each one stamped with the date it was created. I copied them to the hard drive too. By midnight, I had built a complete archive. Every fingerprint I had ever left on the Hartwell deal, organized and dated and ready. Then I closed the laptop and went to bed. I slept better than I had in weeks. The next morning, I went into work and acted exactly the same as I always had. I greeted Marcus warmly when I passed his office. I attended my meetings. I answered my emails on time. I gave nothing away. But I also began watching. Carefully. Patiently. The way you watch a magician when you've finally figured out the trick. I noticed how Marcus moved through the office now. The slight swagger. The way he laughed a little louder at Gerald's jokes. The way he had started wearing a more expensive watch. Small things. Tells. I noticed that the Hartwell file in our shared system had been edited recently. The author field had been changed. My name had been removed from the early drafts. Someone had gone in and rewritten the metadata to make it look like Marcus had been the lead from day one. I didn't say anything. I just took screenshots. Date stamped. Saved to the hard drive. I noticed that one of my old emails to Marcus, where I had sent him the first draft of the pitch 6 months ago, had been deleted from his inbox. I knew this because I asked him offhandedly if he still had it, and he said no, he had cleaned out his inbox. But I still had it. Of course I did. A week later, Marcus called me into his office. He gestured for me to sit, then leaned back in his chair with a thoughtful expression. "Hannah," he said, "I've been thinking about your career." I kept my face still. "Oh. I don't think this firm is the right fit for you anymore." The words hung in the air between us. I waited. I did not flinch. "You've done good work," he continued. "But I think you've plateaued. The senior partners feel the same. We're going to need to make some changes." I tilted my head, just slightly. "What kind of changes?" He smiled, and it was the warm smile again. The mentor smile. The one he had used 6 years ago when he hired me. "Nothing dramatic. We'll find you a soft landing somewhere. A nice severance package. A good reference. You'll be okay." I nodded slowly, as if I were considering it. As if I were grateful. "Can I have a few days to think it over?" I asked. "Of course," he said. "Take all the time you need." I stood up, shook his hand, and walked out. My pulse was steady. My mind was clear. He had just made his second mistake. The first mistake was the email. The second mistake was telling me he was about to fire me. Because now I knew the timeline. Now I knew I had to move fast. I went home that night and called my sister, Olivia. She was a corporate lawyer in Boston, 3 years older than me, and she had been telling me for 6 years that I needed to be more careful at that firm. "Olivia," I said, "I need your help. And I need it quietly." I told her everything. The email. The deleted records. The steakhouse dinner. The meeting in Marcus's office. She listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she was silent for a long moment. "Hannah," she said, "do you have proof of all of this?" "Yes." "How much?" "All of it. Every email. Every draft. Every timestamp. 8 months of receipts." Another pause. Then she said, very calmly, "Don't sign anything. Don't accept any package. Don't even say no yet. Just stall. Buy yourself a week. I'm flying down." "Olivia, I can't afford a lawyer." "You don't need to afford one," she said. "You're my sister. And besides, this isn't going to cost you anything. By the time we're done, the firm is going to pay for everything." Olivia arrived on Saturday. We spent the entire weekend at my kitchen table, going through every file on the hard drive. She took notes on a yellow legal pad, the way she used to do back in law school. Her handwriting was small and sharp, the same way her thinking was. "This is a strong case," she said finally. "Stronger than I expected. The email alone is damaging. But the metadata changes on the shared file? That's what's going to sink him. That's documented internal fraud. What do we do?" She looked at me over the rim of her glasses. "Nothing yet. We let him think he's winning. We let him offer the package. We negotiate it gently, like you're scared. And while he's busy congratulating himself for getting rid of you cleanly, we go around him." "Around him to who?" "To Diane Hartwell," she said. "And to Gerald Whitfield. But not at the same time. And not in the way they expect." I felt a small chill, but it wasn't fear. It was something close to anticipation. "And the timing?" I asked. Olivia smiled, just slightly. "Timing is everything in cases like this. We do this right, and Marcus doesn't just lose his job. He loses his career. Permanently." On Monday, I went into work and asked Marcus for a meeting. I told him I had been thinking and that I appreciated the way he was handling things. I asked him to walk me through the package details. He brightened immediately. He pulled up a document on his screen and walked me through it, line by line. 3 months of severance. A neutral reference letter. A non-disclosure agreement that would prevent me from speaking publicly about my time at the firm. I nodded along. I asked thoughtful questions. I let him feel like a generous man making a hard decision with grace. "I just need a few more days to talk it over with my family," I said. "Maybe by the end of the week?" "Take your time," he said warmly. "There's no rush." That afternoon, while Marcus was in a long meeting on the 17th floor, I went down to the firm's IT department on the 2nd floor. I asked for Karen, the head of IT, who had helped me with a password reset 2 years ago and remembered me kindly. I told her I was worried someone had been accessing my work files without permission. I asked, politely, if there was a way to pull access logs for the Hartwell folder going back 6 months. Karen frowned. "That's a sensitive request. Normally that has to come from a partner." I nodded. "I understand. Can I just have the form? I want to think about whether to escalate it." She gave me the form. I took it home that night and read every word. The form required a partner's signature. But it also listed all the system administrators who had override authority. There were 4 names on that list. 3 of them were senior partners. One of them was someone I didn't recognize. I called Olivia. "There's a 4th admin," I said. "Someone outside the partner group." She was quiet for a moment. "Read me the name." "Theodore Vance." I heard her tapping on her keyboard. "Hannah." Theodore Vance is the firm's outside compliance auditor. He's required by law to investigate any internal fraud claim that comes through proper channels. He doesn't answer to Marcus. He doesn't answer to Gerald. He answers to the state bar. I sat very still. How do I reach him? You don't go to him directly. You file a formal written complaint. Through the firm's compliance hotline. You attach your evidence. And once it lands on his desk, he is legally required to open an investigation. And Marcus can't stop it? No, she said. Marcus can't even know about it until Theodore decides to tell him. I closed my eyes. I thought about that warm smile. The minor research support. The steakhouse photos. "Olivia," I said, "let's file the complaint." We spent 2 more days preparing the complaint. Olivia drafted it carefully, in plain professional language. We attached the email, the metadata screenshots, the version history of the Hartwell proposal, and a sworn statement from me describing the timeline. We did not include emotion. We did not include accusations beyond the facts. We did not call Marcus a liar or a thief or a cheat. We simply laid out what had happened, in order, with proof attached at every step. Olivia read it through one final time on Wednesday night. Then she looked up at me. "This is going to detonate," she said quietly. "Are you ready?" I thought about the question for a long time. I thought about 6 years of late nights. About 8 months of Hartwell. About the warm smile and the cold email. About the steakhouse photos with my colleagues raising their glasses. "Yes," I said. "I'm ready." We submitted the complaint at 11:47 that night, through the firm's secure compliance portal. The system sent back an automatic confirmation. Case number assigned. Investigator notified. A formal acknowledgement within 72 hours. I closed my laptop. Olivia poured us both a small glass of wine. "Now," she said, "we wait." The next morning, I went to work as usual. I smiled at the receptionist. I waved at Priya. I sat at my desk and worked on small assignments, the kind I had been given since being quietly sidelined. Marcus stopped by my desk around 11. "Have you thought any more about the package?" he asked. "I'm leaning toward accepting," I said. "Just want to talk to my sister one more time. She's a lawyer. She wants to look at the non-disclosure language." His smile flickered, just for a second. "Of course. Standard stuff, but happy to wait." He walked away. I returned to my screen. 3 hours later, I noticed Marcus walking quickly toward the elevators with his phone pressed to his ear. His face looked tight. Drawn. Not angry yet, but wary. I knew that look. It was the look of a man who had just received an unexpected phone call. At 3 in the afternoon, an email went out to the entire firm. It was from Gerald Whitfield's assistant. It announced that there would be a mandatory all-hands meeting on Friday morning. No agenda specified. Attendance required. Across the office, people glanced at each other. Mandatory all-hands meetings without agendas were not normal at Whitfield and Pierce. I kept my face neutral and went back to my spreadsheet. Thursday was the longest day of my life. Theodore Vance had not contacted me yet, and Olivia warned me he might not before the all-hands meeting. Compliance investigators worked on their own timelines, she said, and they didn't always loop in the people who filed the complaints. I sat at my desk and tried not to look at Marcus's office. He was in there most of the day, with the door closed, on the phone. I could see his silhouette through the frosted glass, pacing back and forth. At lunch, I went to a small cafe 2 blocks away and called Olivia from the back booth. He knows something is wrong, I said. He doesn't know what. But he can feel it. That's normal, she said. Don't react. Don't change anything. Just keep going. I went back to the office. Marcus called me into his office at 4. Hannah, he said, I'm going to need you to sign the package paperwork by tomorrow morning. Things are moving quickly upstairs and I want to make sure your situation is settled before any reorganization announcements. I tilted my head. Reorganization? Just internal stuff. Nothing for you to worry about. I nodded slowly. I'll have my sister's notes back tonight. I'll let you know in the morning. He smiled. The warm one. But this time, behind the warmth, I could see something new. A flicker of nervousness. The kind of look a man gets when the floor under his feet starts to feel less solid. He had no idea how unsteady that floor was about to get. Friday morning, I dressed carefully. A dark blue blazer. Simple gold earrings my mother had given me when I graduated. Sensible shoes. The kind of outfit that said quiet professional, not someone about to be at the center of a storm. The all-hands meeting was at 10 in the largest conference room on the 18th floor. Every employee was required to attend. I sat near the back, next to Priya, who whispered that she had no idea what was happening. At exactly 10, Gerald Whitfield walked in. Behind him was a man I had never seen in person before, but whose name I now knew well. Theodore Vance. Tall, gray-haired, carrying a slim leather folder. Behind them was Marcus. His face was pale. He was trying to look composed, but I could see his hand shaking slightly as he pulled out his chair. Gerald cleared his throat. Thank you all for coming. We have a serious matter to address regarding the integrity of one of our recent client engagements. A hush fell over the room. As of this morning, Marcus Riley is being placed on indefinite suspension pending the outcome of a formal compliance investigation. Mr. Vance, our independent auditor, will brief the partners separately. The firm will cooperate fully with all inquiries. 100 heads turned, almost in unison, toward Marcus. He stared straight ahead. I did not turn. I did not need to. I already knew exactly what his face looked like. The meeting ended quickly after that. Gerald asked everyone to return to their work and to refrain from speculating in public spaces. People filed out in stunned silence. Priya grabbed my arm in the hallway. Hannah, what is happening? I don't know any more than you do, I lied gently. I went back to my desk. Within 20 minutes, an email arrived from Theodore Vance. The subject line read, Confidential, Witness Interview Request. He asked if I could meet with him at 3 that afternoon, in a private conference room on the 20th floor. He said my testimony was needed for the ongoing investigation, and that everything discussed would be protected under whistleblower confidentiality rules. I replied that I would be there. At 2:30, Olivia called me. Just be honest. Stick to the facts. Bring your hard drive. Don't volunteer anything you weren't asked. And remember, you are not on trial. He is. At 3, I walked into the 20th floor conference room. Theodore Vance stood up and shook my hand firmly. He had kind eyes and a serious mouth. He gestured for me to sit. "Ms. Beckwith," he said, "I've reviewed your complaint and your evidence. I have to tell you, in 20 years of doing this work, I have rarely seen documentation this thorough." I felt something loosen in my chest for the first time in weeks. The interview lasted 2 hours. Theodore asked careful, methodical questions, and I answered each one with the calm I had been practicing for weeks. He took notes by hand. He asked me to walk him through the metadata screenshots. He asked me about the steakhouse dinner. He asked me about the package Marcus had offered me, and his pen paused for a long moment when I described it. "He offered you severance and a non-disclosure agreement after you had already discovered the email?" Theodore asked. "Yes." "Did he know you had discovered it?" "I don't believe so. He thought he was simply pushing me out before anyone else could ask questions." Theodore wrote something down and underlined it twice. "That is what we call evidence of intent." "Thank you, Ms. Beckwith." When the interview ended, he stood and shook my hand again. "I cannot share investigation details with you. But I can tell you that what you did took courage, and that the firm owes you more than they realize. Please do not sign anything Marcus has offered you. Do not resign. Do not accept any package. Are we clear?" "Yes," I said. "Good. Go home. Rest. Things will move quickly from here." I walked out of that conference room and rode the elevator down 20 floors with my heart beating quietly and steadily, like a drum that finally knew the rhythm. The investigation moved faster than I expected. By the following Wednesday, Theodore Vance had completed his preliminary findings. By Thursday, he had submitted them to Gerald Whitfield and to the firm's full board of partners. I learned the details slowly, in pieces, over the next 2 weeks. Olivia helped me understand them. Marcus had not just stolen credit for the Hartwell deal. He had been doing it for years. 5 other deals, going back to before I was even hired, showed similar patterns. Junior associates, mostly women, mostly young, who had been quietly written out of their own work. Most of them had left the firm believing they had simply not been good enough. 2 of them had left the industry entirely. When Theodore's report became public within the firm, those former associates were contacted. Several of them were willing to corroborate the pattern. The case against Marcus went from serious to catastrophic. He was officially terminated on the following Monday. His name was removed from all firm publications. The State Bar opened a separate inquiry into his professional conduct. A civil lawsuit from one of the former associates was filed within the month. He did not contact me. Not once. I think, in the end, he understood that there was nothing he could say. 2 weeks after Marcus was fired, Gerald Whitfield asked me to come to his office. I had never been in his office before. It was on the 21st floor, with windows that looked out over the entire city, and a large oak desk that had probably been there longer than I had been alive. He stood when I walked in and gestured to a leather chair across from him. "Hannah," he said, "I owe you an apology. The firm owes you more than an apology." I waited. "You should have been recognized for the Hartwell deal from the beginning. You should have been at that dinner. You should have been on that contract, in your own name, in clear letters. You weren't, because of one man's actions, but also because the rest of us did not pay close enough attention. That is on all of us. It is especially on me." I nodded slowly. "Thank you for saying that." He took a breath. "I would like to offer you a partnership. Effective immediately. With back compensation for the Hartwell account, calculated at the rate that should have been paid had you been listed as lead from the beginning. I had imagined this moment many times during the long quiet weeks. I had imagined exactly what I would say. But when it finally came, I surprised even myself. "Gerald," I said, "thank you." "But no." He blinked. "No? No. I appreciate the offer. I appreciate the apology. I will accept the back compensation because that is money I earned. But I will not be staying at the firm." He leaned back slowly. "May I ask why?" I thought about how to answer that. I thought about the warm smile and the steakhouse and the late nights I had given to a place that had let me be erased. "Because trust, once it is broken at this level, doesn't really come back," I said. "Not for me. The firm let this happen for a long time. To me, and to others. I think you mean what you're saying right now, and I think you'll do better going forward. But I can't be here to see it. I need to start something of my own." Gerald studied me for a long moment. Then he nodded, slowly. "I understand. And I respect it. If you ever want a reference, or a referral, or anything from me at all, you have it." "Thank you. What will you do?" I smiled, for the first time in weeks. A real smile. "I'm going to start my own practice. Smaller. Cleaner. The kind of place where everyone's name goes on the work they do." I left Whitfield and Pierce on a Friday afternoon. I packed a single box from my desk. Priya hugged me at the elevator. A few of the other junior associates came by to wish me well. Some of them, I think, already knew that something significant had happened, even if they didn't know the details. Olivia helped me file the paperwork for my new firm the following Monday. We named it Beckwith Strategy Partners. Just my name. Plain and clear. The kind of name that no one could ever erase from a document because it was carved into the front door. 3 weeks later, my first major client signed on. It was Diane Hartwell. She had heard, through quiet channels, what had happened. She had asked her general counsel to find me. When she called me herself, her first words were these. "Hannah, I knew that pitch was yours from the moment you walked in alone. I'm sorry I didn't say something sooner. You don't owe me an apology." "Maybe not," she said. "But I owe you a contract. Are you taking on new clients?" I looked out the window of my new office. It was a small office. One room, with a window that overlooked a park, and a single oak desk I had bought secondhand and refinished myself. "Yes," I said. "I am." A year later, Beckwith Strategy Partners had 4 employees, 12 active clients, and a reputation that had spread quietly through the industry. We were not the biggest firm in the city. We were not the flashiest. But we were known for one thing above all others: every person who worked on a deal had their name on the deal. I thought about Marcus sometimes. Not often. Not with anger anymore. Just occasionally, the way you think about a chapter of a book you have already finished reading. He had been disbarred from the state's professional consulting registry. He had taken a much smaller job at a much smaller firm in a different city. I wished him no further harm. I had moved beyond the place where his story mattered to mine. What stayed with me, though, was something Olivia said the night we filed the complaint. We were sitting at my kitchen table, and she had just clicked submit, and she looked at me and said, "He thought he was burying you, Hannah. He didn't realize he was planting you." I keep that line written on a small card on my desk. I look at it on the hard days. On the days when starting something of your own feels impossibly heavy. He thought he was burying me. He didn't realize he was planting me. And I grew.